On Education is sponsored by Participate, a community learning platform where the world learns together. Later in the episode, we'll hear about one of Participate's partners, The Sandbox, and how you can get involved in its free community learning opportunities and live streams.
I mean, heaven forbid, considering not using the agrarian calendar as the way that you do your school year. Welcome to On Education, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glenn Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss why every Wednesday should be an asynchronous learning day, who our favorite movie teachers are, and our guest this week is friend of the podcast, Mandy Froehlich.
So I almost forgot that we were supposed to do the podcast today. Actually, I did. I legit did forget. You sent me a text at, I'm just going back and looking at it, 6:15. You sent me a text, and that's when I went, oh, crap.
I had the day off today, too. And I have tomorrow off, too, which is weird. We have kind of a weird couple of days off. I don't think it's very common. Some districts do take today off, which we're recording on a Monday on President's Day in the United States. But you said there's a holiday in Canada.
Yeah, in Ontario, it's called Family Day today. And it's a like everyone takes Family Day off. Like so unlike President's Day, which is like, it seems like some people work during President's Day that would normally take like a statutory holiday off. In Ontario, Family Day is everybody, like stores are closed today. Yeah. And everything. So I thought today was Sunday most of the day. And didn't work today. Took it off as a day off, even though a lot of folks that Participate were working today. Sure. So I truly, thought it was Sunday. Played a lot of video games and did a whole lot of nothing. And then realized that we have a podcast to do.
Yes, we do.
Here we are. And we were talking off air about the weather. We don't normally do weather chat on Education, but I thought I'd make the note of it because a lot of people don't realize that I think like latitudinally, yeah, I'm actually further south than you. Yes. And it is freezing, freaking cold in the Midwest. Yes. And in most of the United States right now, you guys are getting crushed. And there's like power outages in Texas and ice storms and car pileups and tons of craziness going on. And I'm just sitting here looking at my 6 feet of snow in the front yard, and it's like 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which isn't too bad. Minus 5 or 6 Celsius for the Canadians. You guys are getting, it's cold there. Yeah. You were saying your gas lines froze. Yeah, it happens every so often. It's super frustrating. I'm not sure if it's this house specifically, but last time it was many homes that actually happened. Actually, it happened 2 years ago when I came back from FETC one time, 2 years ago when we were there. And it was the year, Mike, that we were presenting from just the table, and I had printed out the poster. Remember? Yeah. And good times. When I came back from that time, the governor had actually shut down the schools because it was too cold, and the wind chills were in the negative, I want to say 40s and 50s. So this morning it was negative 26, somewhere around there. And in the house, it was about 50 degrees. So when I got up, I was like, oh my God, the furnace is out. I could just tell. I was like, something is wrong.
luckily enough, the power company came out. They did some investigating and they actually fixed a couple of things on the outside of our home too, to maybe that it won't happen as often. But yeah, it's really ridiculously cold. And actually that geographic info was also told to me by Jennifer Casa Todd, who said to me something to the effect of, this is further north than Toronto is, because she's from where you live.
Jen lives about 30 minutes south of me, but on the same she's almost straight south, straight down a highway. I go to Newmarket where she lives all the time. That's where the Apple store is. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So it is a crazy kind of cold here. And this is very typical though. The February weather, I would say, is really, really super ridiculously cold. January and February. March gives you a mixed bag. We could get that massive snow that you normally get, or we could just get freezing cold, or there has been some March, and I hope this sometimes in March that we get an early spring. And man, everybody in Minnesota celebrates those years. They happen very few times, but maybe it'll be this year because it's 2021. It's not 2020 anymore. And we'll get something amazing, and we'll get to go outside. You guys are listening to our conversation with Mandy. We were talking, I think, off air about how cold it is and how gross it is to just be inside all of the time and be forced inside. So those of you that are out can get outside, you're blessed.
Yeah, our Southern California friends and
Texas.
I keep seeing Michael Hernandez with his pictures of riding with the palm trees, and I'm like, oh, dude. I mean, whatever.
That's where my brother lives too. Yes, exactly. Beautiful weather every day.
Yeah. I wish.
Yes.
Hey, so want to put a game on people's radars, because what would be an episode of On Education without a little bit of game talk?
Gaming. Yeah.
But this so there's a funny trend happening in game sales and in game popularity. And I feel like we should have seen this coming a long time ago, but the last year and a half, we've seen streamers driving the trends of what game is truly popular or not. Either resurrecting or making games that would have otherwise been unknown or relatively unknown into huge games.
Yes.
It happened in the spring and summer of last year with Fall Guys. And then it happened again over the fall and the winter in the last year with Among Us. And now it's happening with a game called Valheim. Valheim is a survival sandbox survival game. So if you have played like Ark or DayZ, or any of those kind of where you have to like gather materials, build a fort or like a base and upgrade your skills. Not like Minecraft, definitely like those other games, Ark and stuff like that. But it's centered around Norse mythology and the Vikings. So there's a lot of symbolism and stuff like that, centered, like the armor and the things you can build are all kind of Viking, appearances. And it is very good, and it is a lot of fun. I've been playing it a lot lately, and Glenn, you just started playing it today, and there's been I've been playing with some buddies that I've been playing games off and on with for almost 20 years now. But we started a server and they're on it with me as well. So Valheim, friends, go and check it out. It's really quite neat.
Yeah, it reminded me of a game that I really liked, but it also scared the hell out of me, called The Forest. because it has some similar mechanics, and even the way that the characters are moving and the way that you build things are very, very similar to that game, which again is not these kind of huge titles either. That's the other part that's interesting, like you just said. They're not these big companies that are putting out these blockbuster type of games. Instead, it's these companies, and this is still in, and it's still in,
and it's in beta.
Yeah, and they sold 20 million already.
Over a million copies. This studio, this indie game studio, is a multi-million-dollar company now because of one hit game that streamers picked up on, and then everyone started playing. I have a sponsorship with a company called Nodecraft. They do servers, and they have a banner at the top of their site. If you want to create a Valheim server, there might be a 3-day delay because of the I don't understand the server creation process, but I have a server, so I don't care because I got mine already. But it's pretty wild.
Awesome. Yeah.
So people should check that out. One of the things I've been actually thinking about lately, and it's funny that it's come up in the show notes, and I wanna talk to someone, and this might be something we do with Noah as a dig it or ditch it, which we should definitely get back to doing. Is this idea of things that we should keep and things that we should get rid of, that we have developed as habits or new structures or behaviors as a result of the pandemic. And so one of the things that has come up though on Twitter is this idea that, and it's from Dwayne Reed tweeted it, Wednesday should be an asynchronous workday for schools now and forever. And Glenn is on board. So tell us what you think.
I actually think that the 4-day work week, someone else was talking about that or asking about that, and this is kind of right along those lines, but maybe not an actual day off, but an asynchronous day allows for so many different things. The flexibility of having that day allows for true PLCs to happen at schools instead of just some other meeting that you just have to attend, whether you actually have teachers that are able to collaborate together and really work through some goals and goal setting and et cetera. The ability for teachers, we talk about all the time, to be innovative, Mike. We want people to be innovative, as you describe many times, and you've wrote about it and you've spoke about it too, but we don't give them the permission to do it, and we definitely never give them the time to be able to be innovative. We pretend that the summer is the time to be innovative, but that really isn't the case. It doesn't work like that.
Well, it's also not the way it's supposed to be.
No, it's not. It's not the way it's supposed to be. That would be, in addition to whatever you're actually working on. So really building that into a schedule where you have an asynchronous day gives kids the ability to go ahead and have a day where it's flexible learning. And then it gives your teachers, and then gives you some different things that you could do in that day, both for the students. Maybe they can do they could take an additional course or do some community service. Tons of different opportunities if we go ahead and build that in. And I think when we do speak to Noah about adding things, it has a lot of the things that we've learned during the pandemic that I think we should keep have to do with time, calendars, the adjustment of start times for the school day, how many hours we go to school, being able to have those things be flexible, and also have courses that you don't have to be there face to face every single day, that there's some flexibility in being able to do things like this, really is huge. The ability for us to not have to meet in the exact same room is huge too. Different things have happened, and now we were forced to do some things, but now it's like, hey, we can take advantage of that, take in some of the, make up some more time and give it back to ourselves, and then be innovative with that time. be able to do some things you maybe never even thought about doing before, because you didn't feel like you could have the opportunity to learn about it more, etc. And now you can. So I'm really excited about those types of things. I don't know if this will happen, Wednesday be an asynchronous day forever. But I think some districts are going to start really looking at these things, some local school boards, and saying, this is a really good thing for our students, for our educators, and even for the community itself. It could be great for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, heaven forbid, considering not using the agrarian calendar as the way that you do your school year.
Exactly.
It would open up tons of interesting calendar opportunities that may be better for everybody, not just teachers, but for students and parents, to be honest. I mean, summers are challenging for parents that still have to work.
Yes. And
their kids are home. But, it's an opportunity, to consider just, that we've been using the calendar for the school year for the last 300 years. And it's probably time to take a look at that, amongst many other things.
Agreed.
Speaking of, what's old is new again. Mm-hmm. And looking back at history, one of our teammates, Diana Myers-McGee, shared an article with us, and the title, hits it dead on already. Remote learning isn't new. Radio instruction in the 1937 polio epidemic, with a great picture of kids sitting and listening to the radio with their papers and their pens and their books. And it's super interesting because, we've had to do this before, right?
Yeah. I mean, that picture is amazing. It says in the caption, it says Chicago students doing broadcasted radio school lessons in 1937. So if people are complaining about Zoom, imagine this.
Cameras off.
315,000 kids were home taking their radio lessons, through the radio. Imagine being the educator, having to be innovative enough that spoken word would be enough to be able to, and only one-way communication too. I was just thinking about that. It's a one-way communication. It's live, so it's not like a recorded lesson, where you can kind of redo, retakes. You gotta be live on radio and then delivering the lesson to your students. What a fantastic thing, and I obviously I hadn't even thought about this or whatever it might be. So it's a great article, kind of a good thing to be able to take a look at as far as the history of these types of things, and then just being able to say, you know what, we're very resilient, all of us, as far as humans in general, and the way that we've managed through this, and the way that we've learned so many things through this. And what we will end up being as far as after this, as far as in the educational system, there's a lot of promising things. And we said it from the beginning. We didn't want to say it was an opportunity because that was a forbidden word. But it is now, in retrospect, an opportunity to take a look at our practices and then change the ones that need changing. So if you don't change after this entire thing, and you don't change as an educator, you don't change as a system, you don't change as a government, then something is wrong. Truly wrong. That's horrible. There is no learned lessons then. There are things for all of us to take away from this. Obviously, there are some things that we took for granted, and we want to make sure that we don't take those things for granted anymore. But there's things that we can be like, you know what, we could do things better than what we had been doing them previously. And hopefully we do take those lessons. And as we come through these next months and then this year, as it goes on, 2021, and we end up at a better and better place. And, the masks are gone and we are all vaccinated. And it seems like it's hopefully the end of this period. I hope that schools have changed and there's a different take. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, we learned these things. Here's our adjustment to it, and we're now better for it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Counting on that.
Yes.
And we talked about that with Mandy a little bit as well. Ending off this part of the podcast with a pretty good Twitter thread that I think you actually have a strong opinion on, and I actually don't. Oh, yeah. But the question was, who was a good teacher in a show or movie? And I feel like you've mentioned this before. Who is your favorite teacher from a movie?
100%. I would vote for Mr. Escalante, and he was in the movie Stand and Deliver, played by James Edward Olmos. I think that's his full name. And it's just a fantastic show. I've seen it more than 20 times. I've memorized many parts of the movie itself. I just absolutely love it. But then what was cool about this thread, and we'll make sure we link it for the audience, is you'll want to take a look at this because there's so many really good movies that depict amazing teachers. Another one that I hadn't even thought of, Mike, that I actually showed in class is a movie called Walkout. And it is about the 1960 walkouts that happened in Los Angeles. And it was basically, it is a fantastic thing to take a look at that was happening in the 60s that continues to happen today. And as far as people taking to the streets and saying, you know what? Things aren't right. And in this case, they weren't right in these specific schools in this school district in Los Angeles. It is a fantastic show with some great teachers. I think too often we're always like this, but as humans, there's these shows, there's movies and shows and TV series with teachers who are horrible. You know, they're depicted in a really terrible way, you know, as far as whatever might be. And we get too involved emotionally to those things, you know, like, oh, I can't believe, you know, they showed us. But often there's a lot of really, really good Hollywood type of movies and TV shows that have been an amazing depiction of what an educator is. And so, you know, there's both sides of the thing. So for sure, you guys want to check out this list because there's so many good movies on here that I hadn't even thought of, and TV series too. What's your favorite, Mike? Or what?
I don't really have one. I kind of thought I can think of movies with people I would consider teachers or teachable, like Mr. Holland, right? So Mr.
Sure.
Holland's Opus.
That's a great show. Yes,
is one that I thought of, it's funny. I actually have a stronger take on your main character there, Edward James Olmos, the actor, than I do on this whole, because he was in The West Wing. That's why I was like, and this is why I remember this question, is because you've mentioned this guy before, and I've looked him up before, and every time I've looked him up, it's because he was in The West Wing. He was, and his other claim to fame is that he was given an opportunity to be the Captain Picard of the next generation, and he turned it down.
No way.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's a good tidbit. That was a good tidbit right there, Mike.
Those are the two things I know about this guy.
For us being super nerds. Oh, you know what he was on, though, Mike? I don't know. Did you ever watch the series Battlestar Galactica?
He was on that too, I believe.
He was the captain. He was the captain of the main ship or whatever it might be, and that was a really dark sci-fi series that I highly recommend to anybody that likes sci-fi. If you want some dark stuff, the Battlestar Galactica is awesome for that type of thing. I can't believe, though. Imagine he was Captain Picard of the Starship Enterprise.
Right.
That just doesn't seem right. I'm sorry. Jean-Luc Picard can't be.
Well, I mean, I imagine it would have been great, but
yeah, it would have been awesome. It just would have been way different. Yes,
but that's
for sure.
There's my
there's
my
your take.
tangential, whatever that word is, take on this is related to the actor that you mentioned. I don't watch many movies, to be honest, and don't have a strong opinion on this, but I do love going through this list and looking at who people mentioned, and it might actually get me to watch a couple movies.
Check out a couple. Yeah.
So
for sure.
That's that. When we come back, we're going to talk to Mandy Froehlich, who is joining us for, I believe, the 4th time. So stay with us.
We are building this virtual community of educators who share an interest in game design and teaching new skills. We will use this space to connect, collaborate, and innovate with Sandbox.
That's Sebastian Bourget. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer at the Sandbox.
This community is here to provide guidance, support, feedback, and suggestions on how to best use the Sandbox within the context of teaching and learning how to make video games. It allows also to connect experts and educators, bringing together existing creators and members of the Sandbox game platform community with professional educators.
The Sandbox community has grown into a vibrant space of 100+ educators. How can you get involved? More to come later in the episode.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. She's an education consultant and speaker on educator mental health and so much more. She's the author of 4 books and a great friend of the podcast, making her 4th appearance, we think, on the podcast. Welcome, Mandy Froehlich.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to see your faces. I can't even put it into words. So excited to see you.
It's awesome. So we think you're tied. We were talking about this before we went live. We think you're tied with Steve Isaacs, who mostly just cares that we say his name. So you know,
He likes to be mentioned
we used to
in every
actually
episode.
have a running record of how many times in a podcast or how many podcasts in a row we dropped his name. And he loved that. He thought that was hysterical. But we think that you're tied with Steve for the most times being on the podcast. So it's been a minute, you know. I think the last time we all saw each other was FETC in Miami.
Yes.
So that's been...
Seems like a decade ago.
Oh, seems like forever.
It's certainly a whole
pandemic
lifetime.
Minute. Yes.
Right.
It's been a pandemic minute, which is like 5 minutes to every 1 minute.
Right. So much has happened. So how have you been? What have you been up to in the last year? You released a book in the last year, have you not?
2, actually. Yeah.
You've been
2.
busy.
Look at that.
Yeah.
The opposite of me in terms of writing efficiency is what that is.
2. Not so many.
0.
Do
Big
not
fat
2.
0. Not 2.
Not any yet. He's working on it.
Tell us about the
mindset.
new books. Tell us about the new books.
Sure. So I had the foresight to retire from the district prior to the pandemic. It was like I could see it coming, and I was like, no, I need to do something else, because I was the director of innovation and technology. I can't even imagine what those people went through along with everybody else. But I mean, I didn't want to be, I'm glad that I made the choice that I did. I now usually tell people that I'm unemployed, and I'm just lucky enough to go around to school districts and talk to people, because that's basically what it feels like. But within that, I wrote 2 books. So the first one was Reignite the Flames, which is a follow-up to Fire Within, which was my first one on educator mental health. And then the second one is actually a workbook that is a companion guide to Reignite the Flames. Only it can be purchased on its own. There's enough information in there to get someone through the book on its own without. But it's just a very practical, weekly guide to implementing what I talk about in Reignite the Flames. So, that's kind of, I released them 6 months apart, and it was a lot of fun.
Tell us more about that, Mandy, the workbook itself, because I was going to ask you a specific question that I ask you, I think, every single time you've ever been on the podcast, which is just trying to get any types of tips for our teachers out there who are struggling right now, either specifically with mental health, or teachers that are struggling to make a distinction between their work and their home life, which then runs into mental health type of issues, burning out, not feeling like they can continue in the profession. I've heard that's often, both with colleagues that I work around, and then people that are obviously in my professional learning network, either publicly or in DMs or whatever it might be. And it's really hard. I don't even know, honestly, what even to tell them, except that it'll be better. It'll get better, kind of things. But that's not really that good of advice. What are some things that you have found that are successful strategies? And maybe even talk about what you have suggested as far as in this workbook, things that you can work on a daily basis to just to make it through the pandemic. and then once you get through the pandemic, to be be okay as a person, as a human, but also obviously as a teacher.
Yeah, well, I think the benefit of you asking me this every time that I'm on is that every time I have a little bit better answer, because I've had more time to research and implement and all of those kinds of things. And my experience with Reignite the Flames and the Educator's Matchbook has given me a sort of laying out what people can do, gave me a lot better perspective on practical advice. And so what Educator's Matchbook does is it gives you regular times to practice things, like implement them in your life in order to really build a foundation of resilience. And so things that my first thing would be that the things that you do have to be done on a regular basis. You have to create some sort of routine, which is something that people are lacking right now, because, even I sit in my office and I'm in the middle of a call or in the middle of a podcast, and my daughter comes down, she lets the dog in, the dog's digging through my garbage, or she comes down with a question on a paper that I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing. I don't really know. And so I'm trying to shield these questions and stop the garbage from being torn up, and still yet trying to do my work and talk to you guys. And so that those boundaries have really been what used to be a physical boundary, people would go to work and then come home, and work was at work and home is at home, have really been, skewed and really non-existent for quite some time now. So some of those resilient pieces would be the typical things that you're hearing right now, practicing self-care. And people are tired of hearing that, I think. However, scientifically speaking, it helps build resilience, whether you like hearing the words or not. And I've desperately tried to find a different phrase to encompass those same things. Sure. But I haven't been able to. Whether you like it or not, it is what helps you build resilience. And so really, practicing self-care, setting healthy boundaries. I decided recently to stop answering emails on the weekend. I no longer answer them on the weekend because they add to my to-do list. And I might work on the weekends, but I don't answer my emails. And what has happened, I've noticed as I start to transition with that boundary, is that somebody will send me an email, and if I don't answer it in an hour or two, they will send me a text and say, hey, can you answer my email? And I've had to start establishing that boundary by saying, I will answer your email on Monday unless it's an emergency. Is it an emergency? Nope, it's not an emergency. Okay, then I will answer your email on Monday. And so it does take really establishing those boundaries. Establishing boundaries doesn't only mean deciding on it. It means following up on it when somebody crosses them. So that's a big thing. In the book, there are mindfulness strategies to use, things that explains things like mindful coloring, and trying to give more mindfulness strategies than just meditation, which everybody kind of correlates with mindfulness. I'm trying to think what else. There's gratitude and resilience practices in there. But I think one of the most important pieces, and you guys know me, everybody has mental health, right? We all have to practice the resilience and mental health stuff, but we really need to start also is looking at the mental health issues and things that are going on as well, and the overwhelm and the stress and the disengagement. And in order to start looking at that, you really have to be willing to step into your emotions. And, I used to have a counselor that says you have to feel to heal. And if you feel like crying, you have to cry. We tell kids, stop being frustrated, stop being angry, stop crying. That's not how you process emotions. Is just by locking it in a box and locking it away. And I recently I started putting in my resilience presentation, it's kind of like that Shrek saying, like, better out than in, same kind of idea. Got to let the emotions out instead of keeping them in. So I hope those strategies work. I mean, there's so many. I could go on and on and on and on for hours, but those are some of the ones that I've come up with that I've put into the books.
I think when I think about myself and my family and my friends, and I think the word I'm hearing and thinking about a lot now is tired. I think everyone is tired because, like you just said, the days are longer. They're kind of constant. We actually talked to someone kind of fairly early on in the pandemic, and he was telling us, I think it was Tyler from Go Guardian was telling us that there were teachers that were, replying to emails and logging on to their LMSs at like 1 a.m. still. And people have been doing a lot of that for a year now, and I think it's starting to really take a toll on folks, and just everyone is tired. So in that context, I think about like the habits that people have either not developed, that could have helped them through this time, or the opportunity that presents themselves now to develop really good mental health, mindfulness type habits. And I think your idea of not doing email on the weekend is like one of those really simple things that people could do to just develop a habit so that when you come out of this, you're stronger instead of just completely worn down, and then you still got to go to work and stuff like that. So I don't really have a question necessarily, just like almost, maybe we can talk about this idea that that people are tired, and that this should be seen, I think, Mandy, as an opportunity to develop habits, and I think your book could help with that, and your work could help with that. And so we can think about that more is using this time to develop good tools. And what do you think about that? And hopefully, I don't know what I'm saying now, but that's what I'm saying.
That's okay. I got it. I think that one of the most important things that people can kind of take out of this pandemic is that it is okay to be two things at once. Okay. So it is okay to be happy with who you are and still want to grow, is an example. But pandemic specific would be something like, it is okay to both feel frustrated that we're in a pandemic and this feels unfair, and we want to see our friends and we want to see our families and we want to go back to normal. It is okay to both be frustrated and still work on developing ways to build resilience and build a foundation of a little bit more positivity. And so like that's really what gratitude does, right? Like gratitude, when it's done, when it's practiced on a regular basis, gratitude is really about changing your default setting. Okay, like changing your default setting so that when something difficult happens, your default is a little bit more positive thinking, a little bit more appreciation for what you had. It's not that bad things don't happen. It's not like that you don't get sad. It's just changing that default. And so it's okay to both feel overwhelmed and still work on moving forward. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed and not feel guilty for taking time to work through that overwhelm. And so I see a lot of like kind of like dichotomous type things going on right now where it's okay to accept both. And overwhelm is a big thing. I see people talking about it all the time. They don't always have the word for it. It's that thing where you binge Netflix for 8 hours and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I skipped breakfast, lunch, and dinner and I never saw my kids, and you sat through that whole time and watched Netflix. Or you scrolled through through social media and didn't really read anything, you just kept scrolling. Or you lost your glasses and you looked for them for an hour and realized they were on top of your head, or stopped having a conversation with your spouse or partner in the middle of it and forgot what you were even talking about. Those are all indications of overwhelm. And, it's okay to sit in that space and try to get through that the best that you can and still build those practice those resilience strategies.
So, different topic. I actually listen to a lot of different educational podcasts, watch a lot of different ed tech things on YouTube. I enjoy a lot of the things that are out there currently and have been probably for the last, I want to say, since I joined Twitter, which has been a while now. And now there aren't too many original things in that space. I'm sorry, everybody that's putting out that podcast here and there, whatever it might be. I'm happy for you and I'm pumped that you guys are doing amazing things. And a lot of them are fantastic, right? But I wouldn't call them original. And many of them are a play on the same ideas that have been done, just a different kind of spin on it, whatever take.
Different hosts.
But as soon as I heard your idea, you and I believe Tisha Richmond and Melody McAllister, am I
Jen
saying
Cassatod.
the right people here? Jenna Cassatod. Okay, so I don't know why I threw Melody in there, but hi, Melody. And as soon as I heard the idea, I think you guys were saying, kind of building up to the first episode. I was like, that's an awesome idea. And then I got to actually be on the show too, so then it was even more awesome. But tell us about your new YouTube series, The Mass Educator, the idea behind it, and then kind of like what is the play and take, in case people have seen maybe like The Masked Singer, or now I guess they have a dancer too that I haven't watched yet.
Something like that. I can absolutely not take any credit for this idea whatsoever. It was a conversation that Jen was having with us. She had listened. It didn't actually originate from The Masked Singer or Masked Dancer. It was a podcast that Jen had listened to that they were alluding to something very similar in what they were doing in the podcast, which brought us to the masked singer and then to the Mass Educator. And so basically one of us invites someone on and hopefully they're masked, and the other two that didn't invite them on get to ask a couple questions. If we get the questions in a certain amount of time, we get a certain number of points. We play against the audience. The audience has a form that they can fill out and they can guess who it is if they would like. And then once it's guessed or we do the reveal, then we have this sort of wheel of, it's like a wheel of mystery. It started out as just being questions. And then I'm like, but it would be fun if they had to dance, or if they had to do charades or something. And so that's what turned into the Mass Educator. And it has been, so much fun. We're, I think, 5 episodes in, and we've been able to, I can't even, it's so much fun. We just laugh and people, and what I think what's blown me away the most about the Mass Educator is that when we get people on, inevitably they have this crazy cool thing that people didn't know that they could do. Glenn's like, hey, do you want me to grab my guitar and play a song? And we're like, what now?
That wasn't that far a stretch.
Well, for some some people, if people
Yeah.
don't know you very well.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yep.
And then he got the dancing one. He gets up and does some salsa. I mean, come on, like it doesn't get any better than that. And so,
That's funny.
We had Brian Romero Smith on recently, and I don't even remember. He had to do charades for his favorite movie, and he whips out this lightsaber, like legitimate lightsaber from below the camera. I don't even know where he got it from, and starts like mimicking Star Wars. And so yeah, it's been an absolute blast, and such a great way to get to know people and find out what they're really about besides just an education on Twitter.
And I had
Hilarious.
mentioned to you guys, and I still think this is true, that should be part of a conference. It's one of the conferences that we have. I think that would be fantastic. They have the karaoke thing that they do at ISTE. Mm-hmm. This would be freaking awesome to do that and have some sort of audience and have a game that goes along with the entire thing. I think that has some legs. I would love to watch that. So anyway, keep it in mind, because I think you guys could pull that off and it would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, we had talked about reaching out to, like FETC in the past has had that stage in the conference center, or in the expo hall, where, like I think Sir Ken Robinson was on there the one year, and it's kind of in a random place. And I thought, wow, maybe we could do it on there. That might be kind of fun. So, we'll see once we start going in person again. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Goals.
Hopefully soon.
So speaking of in-person stuff, I mean, 2021 is going to be, an interesting year. It's already been interesting so far. I was talking to someone the other day about, 2020, 2021, and 2022 are going to be like a whole lifetime in 3 years. Just the way that they're so different from each other. And so this year, I think, as we hope potentially of seeing each other again this year at some point, and we're all working on a bunch of different things. I'm curious, what is next for you? What are you working on? What are your plans for 2021 and beyond, I guess?
A beach vacation? Is that can that be my only
doesn't
thing?
that sound You're killing me with that, because I actually, when people ask me, I'm like, Hawaii. That's all I'm thinking about right now is going.
Yes.
Right.
Did you know that you could move there during the pandemic? Did you hear this? How you could apply to move there for months if you were willing to do something for the community during the pandemic. They would. I don't know if they would put you up. Yeah, you could. There was an application process, and I said, if I would have known about that sooner, I totally would have done that. But yes, first and foremost, I plan on planning a vacation somewhere. But after that, I am a little bit in the same place that a lot of other people are, where you're just really trying to take it day by day. I do have a couple other projects in the works where I'm going to create another workbook type style book for the normal people who aren't educators, and release that, and then also for hopefully teenagers as well. So those two things are kind of on my radar, and to try and get those out. I've had a lot of requests for districts for the mental health support and things. I also applied for a doctoral program, and so I'm waiting to hear from that. I don't know if I'll get in, but if I do, then my goal is to create a district-wide educator-supported resilience plan that districts can take and then just implement. So those are some of my things coming up, but to be honest, like I said, I'm very much in the same spot where a lot of other people are, where it's kind of wait and see at this point. I mean, I was doing really well with the pandemic, actually, until, in the grand scheme, until they told us that when you get the immunization that you still have to wear a mask. And I don't know why that was my breaking point, because I actually don't care about masks that much. So I don't know why that was it. But when they said that, and then they came out with the news about the double masks, and I was like, all right, hands in the air, like I'm out, whatever, whatever from now on. I can't even deal. So I'm kind of in the same place with everyone else, just really trying to take it day by day and to see what comes. So
it's super difficult. You're right. And it's hard to think past tomorrow, past this week, as far as you're working through things. Mandy, how can our listeners connect with you online and give us any kind of information that you have about yourself, and then also maybe even how to find your book?
You can find me at Froehlich M on Twitter, and some version of Mandy Froehlich, either Mandy Froehlich or Froehlich Mandy on any of the other socials. And then www.divergentedu.com for my website, where I have a bunch of free resources as well. I'm always adding to that if you would like anything for mental health or innovative thinking. And I think that's it. I live in the Appleton area in Wisconsin. If you're ever that way, camping with your family or something like that, stop by, whatever.
There you go. Come hang out with Mandy Froehlich. Mandy, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to see your faces. I miss you two like crazy.
The Sandbox is creating a learning ecosystem where educators can learn in weekly streams, bring ideas into their classrooms, collaborate with other educators, and become Sandbox ambassadors.
Our goal through the stream is to show the world how low the barrier can be to teaching and learning game making through our no-code and accessible platform. Anyone can do it. Passion and education. You can feel it in the streams as we explore and share ideas around game design implementation in your teaching practice.
Join the community to learn more at go.participate.com/sandbox. Thanks for listening to On Education. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. On Education is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Participate, for supporting us. Check out participate.com to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome and see you soon.